So this is the documentation, first step in documentation process as we begin to tear down the vehicle. Show you all the issues that were pre-existing before we begin, just to kind of cover ourselves. Just to let you know a few things, this is one of the issues that we're having right now. The PCV was actually left off, so we have a ridiculous amount of oil that's all in the underside of the vehicle. Pretty bad. Just to kind of show you a few things. Just silly stuff like this, like to where you got timing covers that are just bouncing around because they're missing actual bushings. That's kind of insane. We didn't really think that that was going to be an okay way. A lot of your sensors that are on here are just kind of used and broken. You know, it's not really anything I'd recommend. Again, I mean, this PCV thing is just insane, where there's actually a cap there. So again, all that oil is just running down the residual backside. We're going to start going into the underside, which is kind of crazy. Sorry. So this is actually the whole underside of that. That's all oil and residue and just ridiculous amount of gunk and crap for a motor that's, you know, a few months old. It's insane. That right there that I'm shining this light on, that's actually the detonation sensor. That's hooked to the side of the block where one of the holes for the air bracket, the AC bracket, is actually from. That is improper way to actually install a detonation sensor. Highly do not recommend doing that. Getting back to a lot of other stuff, there's just a lot of questionable things that are disconnected. I know some of this just, you know, not recommended at all. Getting back to this, just, I mean, I know it's a drift car, but it's just like, Jesus Christ. Getting back to a lot of stuff, this is actually your intercooler piping, and intercooler stuff which is not connected to anything. Just bad all around. This is your power steering cooler, which just beat all to hell. Again, understand it's a drift car, but it is it's pretty rough. There is your relay box that's on the underside. Again, not connected to anything, just zip tied. A lot of stuff kind of missing there. Just again, just not the way it should be. Moving on from here. We'll get back up here on the top side. Just kind of wires all cluttered together and just everything kind of loose. Brackets missing, but just kind of zip tied on there. Again, I mean, each person can kind of do whatever they want with it, but I'd not recommend it. Wiring harnesses that are just basically sitting on top of hot exhausts. Exposed, you know, lines of voltage all the way through. Just again, not anything I'd recommend. Just extremely loose stuff, and just not the way it should be. We were kind of amazed at the amount of dirt that was on this. I mean, I know this vehicle just hasn't had that many miles on it, and it's already just ridiculously covered in dirt. That was another thing. We just weren't happy with the cleanliness of it. Moving on from here on the inside of the vehicle. This was kind of crazy. Unfortunately, on the inside of the vehicle, there's just so much that just isn't done right. Again, no, it's a drift car, but this is our wiring at the very bottom before we even got to it. A lot of this stuff is obviously loose, and there's your AEM that's kind of sitting there on the ground, not even kind of connected. That's kind of brutal. This is the dash. The problem with the dash is that none of that's connected. So these, I assume, would eventually make it into the dash there, which is good, but the problem is nothing's mounted. All these gauges are essentially non-functional. None of them really have connections and wiring. The stat gauge that's here right there, again, non-functional as well. That's another issue that we kind of noticed. Really, on top of that, it's just kind of, it's more of the same type of, I wouldn't say style, but just the method of where they chose to install it. This was another thing we noticed is the battery that's in the rear. Again, going back to it, I think we've already documented this before, but the entire housing can be moved. It's pretty sad. So from this point, we're kind of just trying to fix all the issues that would kind of get her up and running, and then we'll leave it to the responsibility of the owner. But again, at this point, just trying to document everything. And then as we begin to pull down so we can expose more of this detonation caused by the bad tuning. So again, we'll just kind of move on from there and kind of go from there. Again, just really disappointed in the tune because the motor just had so much work into it. So again, we'll progress on, move on, and hopefully we won't need to document too much more than this as we go on.